Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are talking today about ensuring homeless students access to meals through Pandemic-EBT. For those of you who are new to our webinars, SchoolHouse Connection is a national organization working to overcome homelessness through education. We work from early childhood through post-secondary, doing policy at the state and federal level, and also a tremendous amount of practical assistance. And we're very honored today to be joined by two amazing presenters, and I will let them introduce themselves. Kelsey?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey Boone. I'm a child nutrition policy analyst at the Food Research and Action Center located in DC.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cheryl Kimbrough. I work for Pender County Schools in North Carolina, and I'm the Director of Accountability and Testing, and one of my duties is to act as the District McKinney-Vento liaison.
Great. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please enter them in the questions pane and hit send. We will be taking questions sort of at a couple points in the presentation and also at the end. And also if you have sort of comments or experiences that you're having with Pandemic-EBT, please also be sure to include those in the Q&A. Also, we do have the PowerPoint available for you. It's in the handouts folder. We also will send it out about an hour after the presentation, and this webinar is being recorded and will be archived and made available as well in the next couple of days. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Kelsey with a little bit of background information about Pandemic-EBT.
Thank you. So hi, everyone. Just a little bit about the program in general. PEBT was created through the Families First Coronavirus Response Act in March of 2020. And the program provides an EBT card to children who are missing school meals due to school closures and virtual instruction. So it's designed to provide nutrition resources to families to replace school meals since families are not able to access free and reduced price meals during the pandemic. And last year, in the spring and summer, all 50 states and DC and the Virgin Islands implemented PEBT for school-aged children. So recently, there were a couple of changes to the PEBT program. In the continuing resolution passed this fall, Congress extended and expanded PEBT for the 2020-2021 school year. And at the end of January, USDA released guidance on how states can implement PEBT this school year. This expansion included the ability for states to issue benefits to children under the age of 6 whose households participate in SNAP, and children who live in and attend childcare in an age where one or more schools and childcare facilities are closed or operating with reduced attendance or hours. To implement PEBT for school-aged children and children in childcare, states must submit a detailed plan on how they will issue benefits to eligible children and families. Many states have approved their plans, and many more are in the process. And also, as part of the expansion, Puerto Rico is now able to run the PEBT program. And in the recent Biden plan in January, the PEBT program was also expanded to be able to run through the summer. So like a summer EBT program, but it will be PEBT.
Great.
So PEBT is, the benefit has been increased to $6.82 per full school day. That includes a snack, where last year it did not. That's a 16% increase over last year. And states are calculating the total monthly benefit amount based off school calendars. Fully virtual students will receive the maximum state benefit, while hybrid students will receive a partial benefit. And these benefits will vary given different state schedules and also what simplifying assumptions each state uses in their state plans. And a student is eligible if they were to be receiving free or reduced price meals through the National School Lunch Program. but cannot due to school closure or their schools operating with reduced hours or attendance. Currently, this is just in today, there are not 32 states, there are 33 states. New York just got added this morning. So we have actually 31 states and DC and Puerto Rico. So those are the states that are approved for school-age childcare plan, school-age plans. Sorry about that. And 9 states have been approved for children under 6 plans. So why this is important, why PEBT is important, approximately, so FRAC did a study looking at USDA data in April of data from April of 2020 and compared it to April of 2019, and we found that there was a decrease of over 41% between students who received free and reduced price lunch in 2019, April of 2019, and April of 2020. So there's so many students who rely on free and reduced price meals who are no longer receiving those meals due to the pandemic. So this Pandemic-EBT benefit ensures that those students are able to receive nutrition and receive the meals that they need when they're not in school. And just an added benefit of PEBT is it works as a stimulative effect and allows more money to be put back into the local economy as people use their PEBT benefits.
And
Great.
for North Carolina, we just I included the part that is included with the FAQ documents that our state provided, and it basically just says the same thing that Kelsey said on why the PEBT is being utilized and to ensure that our students are receiving food when they're not actually in a brick and mortar building.
And I think I'll just add too, particularly for our students who are experiencing homelessness, we know that school is often the only place that they have meals. And if the loss of in-person learning means the loss of meals as well, then it's even more of a significant concern in terms of their health and their nutrition. So we also know that trying to ensure that students experiencing homelessness have these benefits has been challenging as well. So that's part of the reason why we really want to focus and give a broad overview and then dive into some of the challenges that we know and some of the strategies to address those challenges. And with that, we'll dive right into challenges and strategies.
Yeah, so there are a lot of challenges specifically that homeless youth and homeless families are facing with Pandemic-EBT. A lot of those revolve around the lack of access, not being able to access internet, not being able to submit applications because of that lack of internet, inaccessibility to benefits in general. So just not being able to do address changes, get replacement cards, ask questions, those sorts of things call into troubleshoot issues. But also there's a major piece with the lack of awareness. So a lot of people just don't know about Pandemic-EBT and don't know that they are eligible for these benefits. So FRAC actually co-wrote a paper with a fact sheet with a couple of our partners, including SchoolHouse Connect. And so we have a couple of recommendations for states while they're putting together their PEBT plans, things to keep in mind specifically for homeless youth. So first, working with state homeless education coordinators to ensure homeless families and youth can easily access PEBT benefits, as well as working with district homeless liaisons to share information on PEBT with the district's homeless families and youth. Resources that they should include are what the program is all about, how to update their addresses, how to get replacement cards if their card was sent to the wrong address, which is a really big issue. And also allowing these liaisons to deliver PEBT cards to students and families if they do not have an address. We also recommend that states issue PEBT cards in the students' names as opposed to issuing them in the parents' names. A lot of states have been issuing them in the parent or guardian's name, but issuing it in the student name will allow for the student to actually receive and be able to utilize those benefits. And also creating an easy way for families and youth to update address information, which is a really crucial part. Many schools haven't made this very easy for families in general, and it is a particular barrier for homeless youth. And also just sharing the information out with homeless youth and homeless families via email, text, as well as social media. Social media has been a very key part in all of this.
So at this state and local level here in North Carolina, and I can only speak for the things that I'm aware of, either because I have had to deal with it or during our weekly roundtable discussions that we have virtually with our state liaisons and other district liaisons on how we're talking through things that we've had to deal with. So issues that have had to be addressed and corrected is, like she said just a second ago, that no card is received at all, but they are expecting one. If they received a card last year, they're not supposed to get a new one this year. But even for parents that were expecting one this time, we've had a few issues where they did not get one in at all. We have not had an issue in our district, but there have been unaccompanied homeless youth that did not receive their card because of what was listed in Power School for them. We have had issues with cards being sent to a parent that does not have custody of a student. I've dealt with that specifically as well, in addition to other districts. We, somewhere within North Carolina, there has been cards that were sent to a deceased parent. Because of course parents are listed in Power School, mother and father, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily who the student is with once they're deceased. So that's been an issue. Cards being sent to other family members. I've had 2 cousins who have the same last names because their fathers are brothers, and one cousin ended up on the other cousin's card with her uncle and cousin rather than her family receiving a card for her. Student and parent not receiving a card, period, and they're saying when they call DHHS that they're told that they weren't included and are not showing as being eligible for a card, but they were included on the collection that was sent to the state with each monthly collection. Attendance not captured accurately. This has been a major concern that we have had to make some corrections in for North Carolina. And one of the issues was the default attendance shows that students were attending school in person. So even if we had them listed as virtual students on one screen, it didn't necessarily feed into the attendance screen. So where a student should have been listed as one remote, meaning attendance remotely, it defaulted to attendance in person, which directly affected the amount of their benefits. And then just communication issues in general. So there's a hotline that parents can call for DHHS, and they can contact them to ask questions or dispute if there are any concerns. And so DHHS is having them to call us, saying that we have to be the ones to fix it, and then we're saying the same thing, vice versa. And I will say that the last person that has helped me has been tremendous at that helpline, because after researching some situations, I continued to call back until I got someone that was assisting. And I will say that she shared with me some of the issues that they've dealt with, and dealing with a whole state of phone calls literally was about a dozen staff members who have not really been given significant training on what is occurring and how one system talks to the other system. So it's really kind of frustrating for all of us in the background that are trying to help parents to find out what's going on.
So now we'll look a little bit to some of the strategies, and we can, I'll go to the chat box after this, but let's talk a little bit about some of the strategies that have been in place and are being attempted at this to address some of these challenges.
Mm-hmm. So what we've done is we have made sure to track the distribution of cards. For issues with students that were homeless and migrant, they can, they're mailing them to the address of record for the student that's listed in the system, but we're also able, if it was not received, we can contact the hotline and they will send it to us so that we can get it to them. Knock on wood, I was lucky enough in our district that we did not have any that did not receive theirs. The attendance, again, attendance has to be accurate, because if it's not indicated in the system that the students are 100% remote, then they will not receive that full benefit amount that they're supposed to get. Hybrid gets partial benefits, and then 100% in person does not get any. And all of our students at some point have been hybrid, and then some of our students have been 100% remote, or a combination of both. So we've had to go through and make corrections on that. And what our state did was, after the initial benefits were released and multiple issues were needing to be corrected, is they sent out guidance. We needed to make corrections in PowerSchool, and on March 10th, they pulled one more bill that was retroactive back to the beginning of the school year. And so any corrections that were captured at that point, then the parents and the families would receive the difference in benefits that the students should have received versus what they did receive based on the corrections. So far, we still have a couple of families that are waiting on investigations to occur, but once that is completed, then we should, in our district, have all of our students receiving the difference in the amount that they were supposed to get once those corrections were uploaded. You have to make sure to just document strategies and challenges. We started a spreadsheet here within my district to just keep track of the issues that we were dealing with, because there were some things that we were able to help with here in my department, because as accountability, I'm the one who uploads that free and reduced report monthly, but then I'm also the McKinney-Vento person, so that kind of ties hand in hand. I'm also over PowerSchool, so that is the program that we're using to pull the majority of this information. And then I've also had to collaborate with the child nutrition, because depending on what the issue is, one or multiple ones of us have had to talk to each other about that. And that's where that collaboration becomes very important. For instance, for child nutrition, she's the first contact for most families, because we have in our district 10% of our families that normally apply for and are approved for free and reduced on a yearly basis did not apply this year, because everybody's been receiving free meals at the school levels. So there's 10% of our kids who, well, we've always gotten free and reduced meals. Why did I not get a card? Well, it's because they didn't apply for free and reduced meals this year. So now they've applied and they're going to receive the PEBT benefits from this point forward, but they don't get the retro back to the beginning of the school year. So she will check first to see if the family has sent in an application, and if they have, then she'll see if there is any changes to the income that would mean they might have to submit an additional application. If they did not submit an application, then she walks them through that. If that's not the issue, then they call here, and in my department we check on the attendance, we check on if they were submitted to the state on the monthly file, and then we work through that process. And then once I've researched all of that between all of our different areas, that's when I track it on the spreadsheet. And once I have my evidence kind of in line, that's when I would call the 800 number to try to get some assistance on that. And like I said, the last person that I spoke to was wonderful and submitted some help tickets for some investigations to occur. And I'm waiting on just a couple more of those to be completed. And then when we've had our, and I didn't type this in, sorry, but we've also had our weekly discussions with our liaisons across the state in a our Tuesday talks with Neely, and she's our state liaison that works with Lisa Phillips. And we've just been sharing issues and concerns and strategies with each other on how things have been handled.
I think I'm gonna stop here before to go to the next slide. Oh no, we'll go to this. We'll finish this slide, then we'll take some questions.
I'm sorry, my supervisor just got here, and I was like, "Give me just a minute." He's been at the main building, so I apologize for just a second. So continued recommendations is just to utilize information received from the different departments. Again, we've had to work hand in hand with child nutrition and for Power School and accountability, because in all districts, the departments are not put together the same way as they are in our district. So whereas there's only two districts that this is, not two districts, two departments that this is utilizing in my district, this might actually be 3 different departments in other areas. Again, we verify if they didn't receive a card, we verify that the information in Power School is accurate, including the parent name, who the child is living with, and that the address is accurate, and then determining if they did apply for a application for free reduced meals, verifying with that EDS, which is the economically disadvantaged student submission that I have to submit monthly, that the names are correct on that, and that the student's eligibility code is accurate, and that that's been uploaded. And then again, I'll call the PEBT call line to determine next steps. And again, as time has progressed, we've gotten to the point now where they'll submit work tickets for investigations to occur.
Great. So I'm going to, before we talk about kind of some of the materials, we've got a bunch of questions that I'm hoping one or both of you can answer. One of them is sort of where can we find out if our state has a PEBT program? So Kelsey, in the beginning, you talked about states that had approved plans. Where would somebody find out if their state has a plan and if it's been approved?
Yeah, so FNS has a website on the USDA website. So if you just click and type into Google, FNS state plans, you can come up with a list there, or you can go to frac.org/PEBT. And under that, there is a link that says state-specific information, and we keep an up-to-date, every week we update a map that has links to every state's website and highlights which states have approved plans. So that those are 2 different places that you could go to look.
And you said it was frac.org/PEBT?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. I think I managed to get that into the respond to all. Will PEBT cards that go to an address where the parent doesn't live go to the school this time around? That's question number 1. So is there the ability to have cards go to the school as opposed to addresses where people no longer live?
On my perspective, every state is different. It will depend on what their plan is to address that type of situation. I know there are states right now where the cards are still going back to Conduit, which is the EBT provider or the EBT vendor. And then I know of at least one school district last time where the states went to the school. So the cards went to the school. So I think it will really be place dependent or location dependent.
And is that something that a school district can determine on its own? That, like, for example, the McKinney-Vento migrant foster students, that the cards could come to the school?
That is something I will need to check in on. I am unsure of that.
So for North Carolina, it was listed that McKinney-Vento and migrant cards could come to the schools if need be. They're sending them to the addresses if there is an address in the system, but if there was not an address, then it would be sent to the liaisons to disperse. So if a family was supposed to receive a card and they did not, then that's when we have to call the PEBT helpline here in North Carolina and indicate that a card was not received. And they're able to actually track in the system that a card was received and activated, and it will give the date that it was activated so we can see if somebody else has used it. So they've been able to track that and help us with getting cards for families that have not received their card, or someone may have received it in the family and is using it. So that's a whole different level.
And I see it a couple of comments in the chat box that California is recommending that it be sent to the school, and that is increasingly a practice for other areas as well, which certainly takes the challenge of addresses changing, sort of removes that, or at least lessens that a little bit. There's another question.
I agree. And I agree from the liaison level at the district, if they would send them in the student's name, like she had mentioned earlier, and send them to the schools to disperse, it would have probably have made this 100% better than it actually was.
Well, hopefully we can still shape some of these practices going forward. There's another question. I have a family that recently moved across state lines to our district. It's been very challenging for her to get PEBT reinstated. Is there a way for her to access the money she's lost during this transition? In other words, does it save to her account? Can she get reimbursed in some way?
I think that's another thing that's going to be, I mean, I think it's going to be very difficult. It's probably going to take a while. I know that we have had situations where people have moved school districts, and the only advice that I can give right now, I can try to reach out to some of our advocates and see if there's any other situations like this, but making sure that as soon as they move, the minute that they're located in a new school district, make sure that they fill out a free and reduced price school application, meals application, or at least reach out to the school district and see how they can get on the free and reduced price list, because that is going to be the only way to ensure that there's continuity from one state to another, is if you are receiving free and reduced price meals in your old district and then immediately in your new district. So that's the best I can say right now.
And I can say within my district, when I have McKinney-Vento students that move from our district and go to even within North Carolina or outside of North Carolina, our point of contacts at the school will contact the next school to let them know that the student was qualified as McKinney-Vento, and that even if they have permanent housing, they obviously keep that designation until the end of the school year, so that at the new school, they will automatically start receiving free and reduced meals at that point.
That's great. Here's another question. This one, Kelsey, I think is for you. Is there a clear start and end date to the recently extended and expanded changes to PEBT?
So the start date the benefits can be retroactive. Again, this is going to depend on your state, when they decide to set their retroactivity, like their starting date. But under law, they can start retroactively back to the beginning of the school year. So some states did release August and September PEBT benefits back in the fall. Those states obviously cannot reissue those benefits, but states that did not do that are allowed to go back to the beginning of the school year, only for school aged. So that's only K through 12. For children in childcare, the plans are, it's going to be a little different. Retroactive benefits only go back to October. So they can, as long as the child has received SNAP at some point in the time between October and now, they should receive PEBT retroactive benefits from October 2020 to at least the present. If they're still on SNAP, they'll receive all future benefits as well. But it will depend on what age the child is as far as what the start date is. End date, actually in the plan, the American Recovery Plan that Biden just put out in January, it actually extends PEBT through the end of the pandemic. So if the emergency, the pandemic emergency, is still going on next school year, it's guaranteed to extend into next school year. It just depends on when the health emergency ends. And like I mentioned, summer benefits are also part of that plan. So students will receive, as long as states submit their plans and get them approved, they will get benefits through the summer.
And just to clarify for those who are new to this issue, new to McKinney-Vento, new to sort of school meals, you know, for a family to be receiving this, sort of how do they sign up? Like how would a family who's enrolling in school or changing schools just very basically have access to free meals and into PEBT?
So school districts usually collect free and reduced price meal applications at the beginning of the school year or throughout the school year. And it's basically just a sheet that you find. Most districts have it on their website, and you fill that out and submit it. And that's pretty much the only, besides the school needing to have been closed or operating at reduced hours, that's the only other requirement for this for school-age children. We do know, and we have heard, that there are some issues coming up where schools are not collecting free and reduced price school applications this year because of the fact that they're operating under Seamless Summer Option or the Summer Food Services Program, which are two of the waivers that are operating this school year. And in that case, we usually have this, well, they reach out to their school district and see if there's a way to fill out a free and reduced price school meal application. If not, usually, I mean, I've heard of people reaching out to advocates in the area, and that's something we can help with. So if you need to, you know, connect families who need free and reduced price meal applications to that application, you can reach out to me, and I can try to connect you with a state advocate in your area.
And a reminder too that children and youth who meet the McKinney-Vento definition of homelessness are automatically eligible. The McKinney-Vento liaison can provide a name of the student's name and when they became eligible for McKinney-Vento, and that qualifies them too. So there's different ways for McKinney-Vento students and runaway and homeless youth students who are categorically eligible for free meals. Again, just kind of a basic reminder on that piece. There's another question here. Is the hybrid versus on-site percentage based on the state's plan, or is that based on federal guidance?
It is based on a state plan. So this year, all states most states are using simplifying assumptions, which means that they are using kind of like generalizations as far as how they're going to get the correct level of benefits to the correct student, or the correct the student that is attending school in the correct way. So that is a state level. There's not really federal guidance on it. We have states that are setting one uniform, you know, virtual and one uniform hybrid based on the state average of what a hybrid schedule is in their state. So that's one typical example that we've seen. We've also had states who are not operating under generalist or simplifying assumptions, which means they're just getting from each school, for each student, they're getting what their, how many days they're in school, how many days they're out of school, and doing the calculation. So it really just is very state dependent. Soon we are going to be, FRAC is going to be getting some one-pagers on each of the application, or on each of the states and what their plans are. So we're going to summarize like different pieces of the plan, so it would be easier for someone to go in and look at what they should be receiving. And those should be up, we're hoping by the end of the month, early next month. So they will be on frac.org/PEBT as well.
And I will do a commercial advertisement for FRAC to say they have a great e-newsletter. So to get all these updates, definitely go sign up on their website. Another question, are the PEBT cards only good in the state in which they've been issued? We have students living with relatives in another state but continue to remotely attend school in our state. Will they be able to use their PEBT card in the state that they're currently staying in?
That is a question I will need to look up. I think that also would, I'm not sure, do regular SNAP benefits, are you able to use them across state lines? I'm not sure. That would be, if you can, then the answer to the question is yes, because they operate just like SNAP benefits. But I am not sure of that, so we will need to get back to you on that, or I would need to get back to you on that.
Yeah, and I've never been asked that question either, so I don't have the answer to that either.
And typically what we do with it, for webinars like this, where there are some questions we can answer and some that we need to research a little bit, we'll post the frequently asked questions with this webinar as soon as we get it archived. So we'll make that publicly available. So here's a question. You say work with local social service agencies to distribute cards. Does the school district have access to the cards? I think we've pretty much answered that in some cases, yes, if they're sent to the school, correct?
The way that I understand it for North Carolina is that they can be sent to the school if there is a need to, because the student did not have an address in the system, such as migrant or our McKinney-Vento students. But other than those situations, in North Carolina specifically, they're going to the mailing addresses that are in the system.
Another question, would students attending a non-site-based charter school and our McKinney-Vento qualified be able to receive a PEBT card? And the answer is yes, if they're McKinney-Vento qualified, and that means they're automatically eligible for free and reduced, or they're automatically eligible for school meals and therefore for Pandemic-EBT. I think the question is what we've been talking about, which is the distribution and how to get it to them. And I don't know, Cheryl, have you come across that either in your area or in your conversations with other North Carolina liaisons?
Not that is necessarily ringing a bell. That is something that I can ask. Our weekly meetings are, I'm always on the meeting with the LEAs. And so the charter schools have a different representative at the state level that meets with them. But so I'm not able to answer that particular question, but I can find out.
And we have an answer about the state issue, the interstate issue. You have a right to use your SNAP in all 50 states. SNAP is a federal program that is interoperable between states. If you're temporarily visiting family and friends, you can also use your SNAP benefits while out of state. So that is a great answer. Thank you for the responder to answer about whether these can be used across states. Another question, does PEBT apply for youth 18 to 24 who are students experiencing homelessness? Kelsey, my understanding is if you're eligible for public instruction in a state, you would be eligible for PEBT. So it would be depending on the state and who is eligible for public instruction. And I guess I'll turn that over to both of you to verify that.
Yes, that is correct.
If a meal application was not completed at the start of school, once approved benefits, we already answered this too. I should read these before I read them out loud. Let's see, other questions here that I haven't, we've answered a bunch of them. Okay, here's a good one, and I know this has come up quite a bit. What if parents receive the Pandemic-EBT for the student, but the student is now an unaccompanied homeless youth living apart from their parents? What can she do to get the card issued to her instead if she's a minor?
If I were to have that situation occur, then I would call that PEBT Helpline and try to get an investigation to occur and find out how we could proceed. I have not had that to occur, but that would be the process I would follow if it were to occur.
And again, specifically, unaccompanied homeless youth are eligible. The benefits are for them. So I would absolutely pursue that because she should still be able to get the benefit. It just would want to clarify it so it doesn't look like the parent is claiming something that the youth is entitled to. And I'll also want to open up and see if anybody else has had that issue in terms of unaccompanied a youth who was part of a family became unaccompanied, and how you resolve that. Well, while we're waiting to see if anybody else wants to chime in for how they resolve that particular situation. Even though they have a physical address in the system, some don't receive mail there and only in their PO box. Can we still request that the card be sent to the school?
For us here, we would have to call that PEBT. I mean, I know I keep saying that, but literally that's our go-to is to call them for assistance. So my assumption would be yes. But if they, from what I understand, is they're sending it to the mailing address, not necessarily the physical address, because of that reason, because there are families who receive mail at a PO box. So the way I understand it is that it was pulling from our state from the mailing address, not the physical address.
Yeah, I believe most states were pulling, at least last year, from the mailing addresses. I mean, there were other issues last year, but they were still pulling mailing addresses.
And again, sort of clarification about cards that went to an address. Parent doesn't live there, does it go to the school this time? I think there has to be an intentional incorporation of cards going to schools in the local plan, in the state plan, in order for that to happen. I don't think it's going to happen automatically. And that's where I think the advocacy for this particular population is really critical, because otherwise it's continuing to try to track people down and get benefits to them. So I don't think that happens automatically. Are the benefits going through June? And can you talk a little bit about the summer applicability of this?
Sure. So we actually don't know much about, they are going through June, so they will definitely, through the end of the school year. So the end of the school year, whether that's the end of May or June, depending on your state, it will go through the end of the school year. As for summer, we are not yet sure of the details of how this is going to play out. We're still waiting on USDA to release guidance on plans for summer. So no state right now has a plan for summer because we don't have guidance for summer. So that's going to be something we will come back to. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm assuming that the eligibility will be tacked on to like what happened, like what students received them during this school year. But that's just an assumption. We will have more information on our website whenever we get the guidance, or if you do sign up for our newsletter, it should go out in our mailing blast whenever we get the guidance.
And here's a question too, for the states that don't have their plans submitted, like someone's looking for California's plan, they're not seeing it on the FRAC website. Is there a deadline by which they can expect to see plans actually being approved?
There is no deadline. And I can tell you in California, they have submitted a plan. They're in the process of going back and forth with the USDA on details of the plan. So a lot of states have submitted, but they are still ironing out details. And we're hoping to get a lot more through. So right now, like I said, New York just got through this morning, and we're hoping that, I mean, that's a big state. It's got a lot of big intricacies involved. So we're hoping that having a state like New York being approved will help push some of these other larger states and also some of the other states through. So there is no, answer to the question, there is no deadline. Most states are already doing retroactive benefits. So instead of doing proactive benefits where they're like, oh, we're releasing in March for the next 2 months, they're going to say we're releasing for the last 2 months instead of. So all benefits right now are typically retroactive. So.
And Cheryl, you referenced a lot a PEBT call line. Is there, and this may be, I'm assuming it's different in different states, but is there a helpline to refer families if families themselves have questions? I'm assuming that would be different in every state. And is there a central location for where those helplines are?
So the call line that we have in North Carolina is one that both schools and parents can call. So that one I can only answer for North Carolina. So I'll let Kelsey answer
now. So if you go onto FRAC's website and click on each state, the states should have a link to where you can call or who you can contact. And when we have the summary sheets will also have the either hotline number or online form That's something that we are hoping to include in an FAQ here shortly. So we have a list of FAQs. Hopefully we can pull together a list so that they're all in a centralized location for families. But right now, your best bet is probably to either go to FRAC's website or to your state's individual PEBT website and look for it under their FAQs.
And Cheryl, this is probably a situation you've had when you have families who are moving between different counties, but the students are in their school at the school of origin. So how are you handling those situations in terms of pandemic EBT, in terms of which school they get their card from, and ensuring continuity?
So the cards are going to the latest mailing address that's in the system. And so within our district specifically, I've been able to keep all of the students at their school of origin. So if they started with us and they've been identified and they are still attending our schools because they are able to be transported here, then they're able to still get their cards here. In terms of students that end up leaving and going elsewhere, then it's just a matter of working with the next school that they go to make sure that they identify them as free and reduced. And from what I understand is, as long as they're in the upload to North Carolina as attending school within North Carolina at any point in time receiving free and reduced meals, then they should receive those benefits irregardless of exactly which school they were going to.
Great, and here's a comment. We did a call out to all of our families asking for them to verify their address that they would like the card sent to. The families we did not hear back from, we told we would receive those cards at the school site, and then we noted in our CalPads, which is the California Data Student Information System, as the school site that their address is temporarily while they were waiting for the cards to be sent out. So I'm gonna actually, I was putting in websites into the Q&A as opposed to into the chat box, but I'm going to actually put that comment into the chat box as well so everyone could see, because that's a great strategy. And so there's a question about getting information and posters out in English and in Spanish. I'm going to put that as well into the chat box. And actually, that's a great segue, I think, to some of the resources that are available. And as we go through the resources too, I think it would be helpful, certainly for me and for Kelsey, to think about resources that don't exist yet, that maybe could exist, specifically around McKinney-Vento and mobile students, or really any of this, because we know it's a lot of information. So I'm going to turn over back to Kelsey to talk about some of the resources that are available for you.
Sure. So the first one listed here is the strategies to ensure states reach all eligible families with PEBT. That is the piece that we worked with Fostering Champs and SchoolHouse Connect on, and it just looks at different populations and ways that schools and states can design their plans and things that they can do to reach these populations of students. So that is the first one there. Our PEBT Communications Toolkit has a lot of information for states, for school districts, for advocates on getting the word out about PEBT and how they can reach families. We updated that in January, and once summer comes around, we're going to be updating it again. The customizable PEBT outreach materials are very important. Those are things on a Google Drive. They're slides on a Google Drive. We have them in 5 languages. We have them in Spanish, in English, in Chinese, I want to say Vietnamese and Aramaic. I think those are the 5 languages we have. But they are materials for everything from social media to posters, so that you can brand it with your own logos, and you can put in state-specific information pulling from like state plans. We have one on outreach around free and reduced price meal applications, and we have just a lot of materials that you can go in and utilize yourself and share around with your community. And then other things we have are communications resources shared drive, which is sample materials from all all around the country. So we've been pulling flyers, posters, FAQs, pretty much anything that we can find, we've pulled and we've put in that shared drive. So that we have a folder from last year's PEBT, so all the materials that state or advocates used last year to get the word out about PEBT, to troubleshoot, things like that, everything's in there. And we've started one for this year. So we are working on uploading materials from this round of PEBT. So if you need examples on a robocall, like something that, like the script for a robocall, we have that in there from, I think it was Philadelphia School District. So we've got a lot of really great materials that states have used for the last year on that resources shared drive.
Oh, I'll go back for just a second. A question, and I think, do homeless students receive benefits based on their instruction enrollment, which I think means mode of instruction, or are they automatically virtual? In other words, are they presumed to be attending virtually? And I think, Cheryl, that's for you.
I actually couldn't hear the beginning of that question. Could you repeat it one more time? Sorry,
Sure.
it was staticky.
Do students experiencing homelessness receive benefits based on their instruction enrollment, which I think means the mode of instruction, or are they automatically characterized as virtual learning?
No, it's the mode of their learning, because some McKinney-Vento students are 100% virtual and some are hybrid. So it's all based on the mode of learning that they are attending with.
Great. Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit about some of the upcoming advocacy in terms of the future of school meal and child nutrition issues, and then we'll stop again at the very end for any additional questions. So, Kelsey?
Yeah. So like we've said several times, to receive the benefit of PEBT, children must be approved for free and reduced price meals through the National School Lunch Program. So in many cases, that means that families must fill out a school meals application with their district to get approved. And I was talking about the customizable PEBT materials on the right of your screen. Those are two of our customizable PEBT materials for outreach for free and reduced price meals. So we know that many states have not been collecting applications. So to spread the word, and like they've not been actively reaching out to get free reduced price meal applications. So to get the word out and encourage families to fill them out, we have these customizable infographics. Besides that, right now is CEP election season. So we're working on encouraging schools to participate CEP to increase access to free school meals for more students. Because the waiver has been reissued, the CEP deadlines have been extended for the 2021-2022 school year, so for next year. Local education agencies can send their ISPs using data anytime between July 1st and June 30th. And they have until September 30th to elect community eligibility. So the community eligibility election season is extended through September 30th.
And can you just explain what is community eligibility and why is it important, just for the folks who are sort of new to this conversation?
Yeah, community eligibility is when a school elects to give all students free and reduced price meals, and that's usually when their identified student percentage or the number of students who qualify for free and reduced price meals is over 40%. So if a school district has over 40% of their population is receiving free and reduced price meals, they are eligible to be a community eligibility school. So once they receive community eligibility, they are community eligible. Then all students in the school, regardless of their income level, can receive free school meals for breakfast and lunch. So they're extending the deadline to allow schools more time to get their materials together to apply to be community eligible for next school year. And so finally, FRAC is embarking on an advocacy campaign to provide free school meals to all students, which includes getting legislation passed on a national level. So the American Family Plan is the upcoming infrastructure proposal being developed by the Biden administration. and it provides the perfect opportunity to establish healthy school meals for all. And as we recover from the pandemic, we have the opportunity to ensure that all students are hunger-free and ready to learn. So if you visit our website, you'll see our advocacy on healthy free school meals for all. So we're hoping to push that through at a federal level this year.
Great. And there's 3 questions that came in that are all the questions are good. These are 3 really good questions. If a student is home quarantined while the rest of the school is meeting in person, is the quarantined student eligible during that time?
Yes, they are eligible. Depending on I'm not 100% sure on the state plans and how that all fits into it, but I believe that if a student is quarantining for 14 days, they should be able to receive full benefits for those school days missed. So that would be if they don't receive that, they should probably reach out to their call center or use a PEBT inquiry form.
And if a family selects fully virtual, but they have the choice of either fully or in person, do they still qualify?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, because those families are the ones who make the decision on whether they want to be fully virtual or hybrid, depending on what the district is doing. Since our district has been hybrid all year, then the families that are 100% virtual are by choice.
Great. So they're by choice, but they're still getting, even though they chose virtual, they're still eligible and receiving the Pandemic-EBT.
Yes.
Okay. And then if the school is entirely in person, can a child still qualify for Pandemic-EBT? Or at that point, would the child be receiving school meals at school if the school is entirely in person?
If a school is 100% in person, the child is, in the eyes of the government, getting meals from the school and therefore will not receive PEBT benefits.
And what is the community eligibility choice deadline again?
The choice deadline is.
I'm sorry, community eligibility provision.
Oh yeah, it's so they have until schools have until June. Sorry, I think it's June 30th, 2020. Yeah, 2021. Yeah, sorry. And then the state has until September 30th to act on it. So.
Great. All right, I think that is the end of our content, and we're pretty much just at the hour. Lots of great questions. Obviously, there's lots of things that are still being worked out. So please, you'll get an email after this. There'll be a little survey. If there are additional materials that FRAC and or SchoolHouse Connection can create, or other tools and tips about this, that would be really helpful. Oh, here's one question. One last question. What about Montessori schools? Are children who attend Montessori schools eligible for Pandemic-EBT?
I do not have that answer either.
I do not.
And I guess there's a question about private schools. So this Pandemic-EBT is for public schools. Does it apply to private schools? Maybe that's the answer.
Only if they're utilizing the National School Lunch Program. So some private schools do, but most do not.
Okay, so if private schools are using the National School Lunch Program, that would be, so that is likely the case for Montessori. If they're using the National School Lunch Program, then those students would be eligible. Thanks, and I had overlooked that question. So thanks, everybody. We're at time now, but again, all of this is evolving. We got a lot of great information, a lot of new information, and a lot of new strategies. And we certainly welcome ideas for more resources and webinars to share. Thank you very much, Cheryl. Thank you very much, Kelsey, for your time today. Hope everybody has a great rest of their afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.